Hello everybody, welcome back to Language, Litigation, and Integration, Part 73, the Science Scaries. Ugh, watch out, there's a fact you didn't want to hear. Gotta go into denial. Last episode we talked about my lovely Christmas interaction. Probably got some more famous quotes written down to sting about the conversation more. And again, this is what I mean, well, let me start with just a quick story, nothing too serious. But and right after I started discovering these things, I've been doing logical derivation literally my entire life. But then I said, okay, I'm going to start doing a physical research thing. Like I told you, I went to the library and read about the Millennium Problems about May of 2016. Didn't sit down and write anything, just read them and just thought about them. And then realized I had solved all this shit by December. And at December, that's when I had big breakthroughs. But during that time, in that December, and again at this point, I'm still a complete scapegoat. I'm still a kid to everyone that's in my community that can't grow up, that waits till they're 30, 35 to get the maturity of a 15-year-old. So that's good stuff. But, and like I said, I've always had people sit around and listening to me talk until they lost respect for me because I did more science. So that's cool. But I come down the stairs, and again, I'm not kidding you. When I sat down to say I'm going to do scientific research, actually write out a proof, it was about an hour. On one given day, I'm yeah, I am solving a fuck ton of stuff. And then it was the next day, I was this is a full-blown integrated proof for real. So it was pretty quick. But then I realized not everything I think, but I'm doing theorems left and right and profoundly. And so one night, my mom's sitting downstairs watching TV, and I come down. Again, I'm just excited about scientific discovery. Literally just excited about scientific discovery. If I went to Harvard and got a 4.0, my family would be super excited and super respectful. But when you do actual proofing, it scares people. So I'm sitting there and I come downstairs, my mom's there, and I'm literally just, basically explaining to her entropy. Right? I forget the exact conversation, but I was just explaining to her, the reason you tend to disorder more than order is because of efficiency, because you have to concentrate energy, stuff like that, at a very empirical level. And she literally goes to me, "Stop, you're scaring me." I'm just again, structured physics scares people. Remember, I'm doing the background proofing. People already know the results. People already function at a level where they understand everything. But without respect, doing literally academic research, mom's not illiterate. I don't know if she acts. My definition is actively reading and writing, but it's not they're not weird people. It's just they can't respect me because I'm their kid. My family can't respect me because again, I'm 28 is not fucking young, and so it's just again, this is when I was 23. But she literally said, "Stop! You're scaring me." To literally just talking about the laws of thermodynamics with my mom. And so another couple quotes from the wonderful Christmas conversation. After I showed my uncle he brought it up and I was yeah, man, I do this. Here's here's a penny. And then later in the conversation I go, "You're jealous." Just flatly, "You're jealous." He goes, "Yeah, I am jealous." Yeah, I don't know how jealousy works in the Christian mindset, but it doesn't. Then he says, "Are you going to write a book?" "Uncle, I literally list theorems all day. I have 70 books ready to be published of just math theorems. But they have to publish it. That's why I'm on part 73 and part 61 or 2 of the other series. And I have a music portfolio, and I have a $1 million offer to give a lecture, and all of these things. People will not let my life exist." But also what he said, "Do you go to church?" And again, in a very condescending way. My uncle, I have literally 1,000 IQ points. The preacher is not Jesus, is not God. Okay, so I'm going to go listen to somebody else interpret the word. No, I derive the word. Speciality, sensorality, the word of God. Of God's a prepositional phrase, man. Do I go to church to listen to some hack that is inconsistent and idiotic talk about a scientist they don't understand? Fuck no. And again, imagine asking Wayne Gretzky, or just use music as an example. If you were the best musician literally ever, and again, I'm a terrible musician, but if you were a really, really good composer, do you still like other music? Absolutely. Look at my Spotify saves, look at my YouTube links. And so it's like asking the actual like Beethoven or Mozart, and again, never me. I will never be a good composer, literally ever. But ask a good musician if they listen to other musicians. Absolutely. Do they like their music? Absolutely. Are they going to bow down and worship them and do this? Fuck no. But again, science scares people. People will not accept what my life is. They just won't, and I don't care. So this is not like me trying any sort of validation besides financial. I need to pay my bills like any other human being. I'm stuck in the most stagnated society that has ever existed, and people cannot accept it. But that was probably do I go to church? Again, uncle. And then he also asked me, like, what is the Holy Spirit? Uncle, wherever two or more are gathered, what are you in the presence of? The presence of God. It's agreement. It's being around other people. And I asked him, like, I try to explain to him, like, just being around other people modifies how you think, which it absolutely does. Whether you're with your spouse, or with your boss, or with your kid, the things you vocalize are a little different. And he's like, oh, no, I behave the same way all the time. No, I really do that. You should be consistent. That's not what I meant. I just meant if the presence of other people affects how you think. And that's what the Holy Spirit is, right? We got the Trinity, God. And I said Jesus was the translator, and he was like, oh, he's not a translator. Profoundly the most prodigious translator that has ever existed. And again, pretty much ever. So that's a good thing, that's a compliment. And then we have the Trinity, God, Son of God, and then the Holy Spirit. That's what that means, historically. And so like when my uncles and aunts are getting mad, like I don't know what the resistance is. Like, again, I would never say I'm a follower of anybody else, but again, as a musician, I'm going to respect another musician. As a prodigious linguist, I'm going to respect other prodigious linguists. And at that level, you don't need somebody to support you. You don't need somebody to fucking validate you. You don't. And so it's like, I am being the guy that's proofing, spreading history, spreading the word, actually, literally, with a zero religious context, and that's somehow like on a different team or something? I don't even know. Again, it's not that. Science scares people. Ooh, the Sunday Scaries. No, people are scared of science. It really is true. Because then again, and then I ask him if he reads a book, not in a rude, condescending way. If you went and read 8 history books, you would not be able to deny anything I say. But if you don't read a book and you're stuck in your ways, you're just going to disrespect me, slow down the society, and then I can't eat food personally. And that's really the only part I care about. So that was just absolute. Again, I don't know what to say. Again, not mad. My 60-year-old aunts and uncles should probably just be more mature. Again, compassion. I teach compassion and love and spreading good things and helping other people in education every single day. But again, so it's like they don't even know what they're defending. They're not defending anything. They're just offended, and they're just jealous, and they're upset that like for example, like when I talk about helping my family financially. Certainly, my parents wouldn't need financial help for me. Certainly, I think 2 of my aunts would not need financial help for me. I don't think the third, and then maybe my uncle. And again, not even financial help. I mean, I was sitting there at when my grandfather passed away, and again, my uncle in this conversation was like, I lost my dad this year, and it's like, yes, uncle, I'm also a part of this family. I know we don't act like it, but I am too. And I've been spreading scientific research to try to help our family's health for literally 5 years, and people just won't click on a fucking video. So, what are your actions, and what do you say? Did Jesus just sit there, or did he go out into the world and preach and help people? So, I don't know what to say. Again, I'm not a Christian, I'm not religious. I've contributed enough myself. But, anything else from that conversation? No, not really. So we had some good, funny, a very interesting story, and then some funny stories as well. Secondhand stories. I wasn't there to experience them myself. So I wanted to read this whole thing, but this is just the obituary of my great uncle, my dad's uncle. I think it's great uncle. I don't know the lineage, but super interesting story. So I'm just going to read you. This is findagrave.com for my great uncle George Bose. George Bose Jr. was born July 2nd, 1900 in Hungary and came to the United States in 1909 in the company of his parents, George and Sophia Bose, where they settled in Pennsylvania and later in Ohio. George Jr.'s life through most of the 20th century was defined by the culture of the century. He was twice in the Army, firstly in World War I, and then again in World War II. The first military stint created an error regarding his date of birth, as noted on his tombstone. The error occurred when George Jr. ran away from home in Belmont County, Ohio, to join the Army and lied about his age. George Sr. caught wind of this and fetched George Jr. back home. George Jr. rejoined the Army when he became of age, but the errors stuck in military records. The World War I service was with the Signal Corps, where soldiers went aloft in barrage balloons to report enemy positions. George Jr. said he spent 8 months overseas during his Army stint. The Bose family were coal miners, and George Jr. gave up his occupation as a coal miner after the First World War. In 1927, George Jr. changed careers to that of a prison inmate at the Ohio State Reformatory near Columbus, Ohio. He had been convicted of robbing or attempting to rob a druggist. Interesting word. George Bose Jr. was paroled in 1930 when he was 30 and returned to Belmont County. That same year, he married 18-year-old Thelma Deek, who grew up in that vicinity. It is not clear when, but George and Thelma hightailed it to Reno, Nevada, where he found work during the Great Depression as a waiter at an unnamed casino hotel. Thelma found work in Reno's restricted area until 1937, when Reno outlawed legal prostitution. Thelma then moved to Winnemucca, Nevada, where that trade was still legal. George Jr. left Reno for Ohio at some point to clear up his parole violation, which was leaving Ohio without permission. Thelma testified at George's murder trial that she sent him money while he was in Ohio, but divorced him after he returned to Reno. His father, George Bose Sr., died in 1935. His mother, Sophia Bose, lived until 1964. Murder trial, ? On April 17, 1938, George Bose Jr. shot and killed Bob Rogers at Rogers' one-room mining shack in Willow Creek, about 80 miles from Reno, about the same distance from Winnemucca. Bose said he had gone there to convince his ex-wife, Thelma, to sign an affidavit attesting to his citizenship and service in World War I. He wanted to get his war bonus of $1,000, which was finally approved by Congress in 1936. Thelma took the name of Thelma Rogers and was keeping house for him at the cabin. Bose shot Rogers after discouraging words were spoken. Bose claimed self-defense and confessed. Bose killed Rogers out of fear, he told Pershing County Sheriff Clarence Manning. He told the same story to a United Press Wire reporter who did a jailhouse interview. Manning arrested Bose on suspicion of capital murder, and Thelma was as a material witness. Thelma initially said she thought Bose had taken a shot at her when she fled the cabin. At trial, she testified that Bose shot at her twice and said, "I'll get you later." The trial at the county seat of Lovelock, Nevada, ended in July when Bose was sentenced from 5 to 10 years in the Nevada State Prison at Carson City. The jury finally agreed on a manslaughter conviction instead of capital murder. A careful reading of the trial reports reveals a subtext on why Thelma divorced Bose and took up with Rogers. Bose appeared to have promised to take her away from the red light district of Winnemucca, but did not. Instead, he encouraged her to go to a more profitable district in Butte, Montana. Rogers at least took her from the district, although the accommodations at the mining shack were less than luxurious. The tragedy sort of compounded while Bose was in prison. Thelma never reached her 30th birthday, never escaped from the only work she knew how to do. She was killed in a car crash north of Reno. She was not the driver. Sheriff Manning also died violently in 1941 while taking 2 men into custody. He was 50 years old. George Bose was released from prison in early 1944 and soon turned up at Swan Island in Washington State. In an application for a marriage license, he gave his residence as a military barracks. Joining the military again would have provided good cover for an ex-con, and parole authorities probably would not have objected to a highly supervised environment. The war was still being prosecuted at this time. George Bose married Nellie Cole in July 1944. Soon after her divorce from Henry Cole was finalized. Cole was a farmer at Clackamas County, Oregon, just across the Columbia River from Clark County, Washington. Nellie was 46 years old and George was 44 when they wed. The fate of that marriage is unknown, as is the fate of Nellie Cole. One of her descendants believes she lived until 1985, perhaps in San Diego, California. Her history remains a mystery. She does not appear on the California Death Index under the names Cole or Bose, or her maiden name Wilcoxon, or her mother's maiden name of Lewis. Nellie was born in 1897 in Pleasant View, Kansas. Her parents were farmers. George Bose's post-war life was equally cryptic. At times he was a fruit tramp following the harvest, other times he was a field cook for construction, crews, loggers, and mining camps. Where he learned to cook is unknown, but the military or prisons would be a likely guess. Bose was also said to spend some winters as a jailhouse cook, room and board provided at no extra charge. He was never known to be in the company of women, to have a permanent residence, or drive an automobile. Most of these adventures occurred in California, where his sister, Mary, lived and who kept up with reasonable touch with George. She knew the address and phone number of a Skid Row whiskey bar where Bose picked up messages and mail when he was in Southern California. George was extremely fond of his sister, and she was protective of him. In the fall of 1960, Mary learned she would be absent from the house for several months while she stayed at the County TB Sanatorium nestled in the hills near Silmar, California. Mary and her husband and son trolled Skid Row so that George could babysit the kid at the family home in Sunland, California. His nephew got to know George pretty well. George was soft-spoken, an excellent cook, and was extremely articulate in his speech, although he spoke in a Midwestern dialect his nephew remembers. 2 years later, Bose turned up at his sister's funeral professing, "It should have been me," over and over. The grief appeared genuine, but now sounds similar to George Bose's 1938 confession, where he declared his love for Thelma and was willing to go to the gas chamber for his crime. George was last sighted in Los Angeles in 1965, selling small amounts of fruits and vegetables door to door. He died in a rest home in Lancaster, California, which is pretty much in the middle of the Mojave Desert, but still technically a part of Los Angeles County. A long-shot theory recently emerged that could shed light on the missing Nellie Bose. George's nephew, Gregory Kubilek, recalled a curious meeting in 1958. Greg was then 5 years old. At the end of the cross-county trip to visit relatives, the family stopped in Kansas to visit a woman who appeared to live alone in a Gothic farmhouse. Greg remembers her well, but did not ever learn who she was. In years of researching family histories, he never came across anyone in his family who either farmed or lived in Kansas. Could this have been the missing Nellie? Maybe time and luck will reveal the answer. So again, he died in 1977. I just thought that was a super interesting story. And another side story, my grandfather, Judge, my father's dad, who's passed away, several years ago. But yeah, he had also a story, because I guess he was a card dealer in Las Vegas at some point. Or at least gambled or drank a bunch or something like that. And my dad said that George called my Judge Charles and said, I think it was either $50 or $500. I think it was 50. Again, at the time, I don't know what that equated to, but it was like, if you send me $50, you'll never hear from me again. So my grandfather sent him the $50, and I guess they never heard from him again. So again, just a super interesting story. I thought that was pretty interesting. Now a couple more. So now just a couple quick stories. Again, obviously, one's 100% vicarious, the other one's kind of vicarious. But I'm going to tell you about the legend. There was someone in our family born with 2 buttholes. And so, this is very, very intellectual conversation. But there was somebody in our family was born, came out, looked all good, just doing the post whenever you have the immediate looks at the kid right after. The mother of this person was very upset, because what happened was, as he was born, and it wasn't technically 2 buttholes, but it was basically like, in my dad's words, an extra cavity in the colon. So it's just some sort of tissue deformation or some sort of encapsulation in the colon to kind of equate to 2 buttholes. And so the child was rushed back into surgery. I don't know if it was rushed. Was taken into surgery. The mother was very, very upset, and to repair the second butthole. And can anybody guess which intellectual was that? That was me. So if you're wondering why I'm so intelligent, it's because I was born with 2 buttholes. Not really a second butthole, but a cavity. But In my book, I count that as 2 buttholes. But another person in our family was born. And getting his post-birthing checkup. And the parents of this person was very excited. It was their first kid. Father at least wanted some boys. I'm not sure if the mother had any opinion. But son comes out. We're ecstatic. There's a new baby boy in the household. And they're going through head size, check. Mobility, check. Joints, check. Penis, normal but small. And the father's upset. How dare you say my son's wiener is too small? Guess who that one could have been? That one wasn't me. I had 2 buttholes. That was my brother. So my brother, 2 years older. I don't know. I thought those were fun, funny stories. Little embarrassed. Well, I'm not embarrassed, but like, damn, I thought they were funny. Another quick one. Just learned that Christmas with just my grandma on my mother's side. With just again real quick. I guess he spent some time in prison for robberies. I think she just said that there was some like tunnel into a bar that you could kind of like get into, and he would just like go through this tunnel, like he would like leave it open or somehow construct it so he'd get back in, and he would go in there and just rob the place after it was closed. And so I guess one day he was doing that, and he goes through the tunnel, and there's just cops sitting there. And he got arrested, I guess, and spent some time in prison. I think I don't know what time frame that. I think my grandma, I think she's 85, and she said it was when she was real young. I think when she was born, or like up to 5 or 7, she said that's like when he came home from prison. But I just thought those were very interesting stories from the family. Another good one of more of the Science Scaries kind of tone. But I told you about my family reunion on my dad's side, where my uncle, or my cousin's husband, got up like, "You're not retired." Again, people just don't let me exist. But we're sitting there, or I'm over there talking, and they have younger kids, like second cousins or whatnot, just messing around with 1 or 2 of them. And my cousin Megan comes over to me, and she's a Spanish teacher. She speaks Spanish and is a teacher. And so she starts teaching to me or talking to me in Spanish, and I respond in Spanish. Again, I'm good at Spanish, and we're talking, going back and forth for a little bit, and then she literally says, "Wow, your teacher must have been really good." Yeah, it was me. I am a good teacher. I am a good learner. Before you're the best teacher, you're the best listener. And so it's just like, I just again remember thinking, it's like, why does everybody have to say, Brad puts in hard work? That's not true. Brad discovers something? That's not true. Brad does this? That's not true. You must have been a really good teacher. Yeah, I am. And again, it's just with my pronunciation. The literal resonance level of my voice scares people. The proving that I do scares people. Not because it's scary, because they don't have history backgrounds. And so it sounds weird, and it's not. It's really not. So that was, and then another one from the family reunion. My Uncle Dave, he comes up to me, and again, question you can clearly tell he's against cannabis. You do drink. Again, I'm for all drugs. Lives matter. All drugs matter. And past that, if you're a grown adult and you consent, I don't get how one adult comments on another adult's behavior. I just don't even get it. But my Uncle Dave, he comes up to me and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not so sure about the cannabis. I don't think, again, I'm sure we're voting Republican, want to be Christian type of deal, and then they just absorb whatever political narratives there are." Again, shout out Ben Shapiro, shout out Candace Owens. Again, I literally just, shout out the Daily Wire, I'm 100% suing you. I just saw an ad with Candace Owens, and I'm not kidding you. It said, "What if I told you the pandemic was planned for years?" by Candace Owens. And so you don't know. You don't get to spread conspiracy theories because you got a little bit of popularity and you want more views on YouTube by illiterate people. But thank you for Candace Owens and for all the conservative, Republican, retarded idiots that are, again, encouraging and supporting the stagnation of the society as I experience it and document it as it happens. You're on, here's the right side of history, here's the wrong side of history, here's like everybody besides me. And so my uncle's like, I'm against the cannabis. And he's like, I'm going to see what Brad has to say. Because the only time people include me in groups is when they want me to validate their opinions because they don't think for themselves. And again, obviously, I'm steadfast in my scientific research. Let me check my notes again. And he's just like, oh yeah, as I'm clear defending cannabis, as it should be mandated, as my other uncle gets mad at me, and my family does not take my health advice. It's not health advice, it's a proof. If you don't want to behave, like again, I can't help you. I can't Bruce Almighty and make you behave, I can't do it. And so, not my Uncle Dave, my other uncle from Christmas, again, talking about, a lot of stories intertwined, but he's talking about, how he had a vaporizer. And I'm over here again, like, take cannabis, it stabilizes your metabolism the most consistently and safely possible. For sure, that is the practical thing to do. Nope. But he's telling me about, again, hitting a vaporizer. It's just like, I'm so tired of the stigma killing people and hurting people. But back to my other Uncle Dave, talking about the cannabis, he's like, oh, I want to see what Brad has to say about it. I defend it, obviously. And he's like, oh, I'm not sure. And again, I'm just thinking there, like, there were 3 people at the time, there were 3 people at this family reunion, literally living and breathing and walking around because of cannabis. For sure, for real as fuck. People just have to disagree with me. And it's not, you don't disagree in science. Data is data, and people just can't accept science. They just effing can't. So that's really cool. One more quick story. Hope my camera's rolling. I told you about the famous people I met, Arnold Schwarzenegger and the dude from Below. Excuse me, I met one other one, Soldier Boy. Shout out Soldier. I don't know, he was in Columbus, Ohio. Probably at the Express Live building. Again, I years ago. Probably middle high school, probably 2010. And so me and my buddy Jack go. My buddy Jack had a sign that said fuck cat stacks, which is something relevant to Soldier Boy. But so Soldier Boy sees that sign, he literally like smiles, chuckles, laughs at my buddy Jack, and he's doing autographs at the end of the show. Now we're right upstage. It was not a very it wasn't a super poppin' show, but it was fun. It was definitely fun, but it wasn't like super crowded, so we're right up close. So I gave him my Boston hat, which I just found in my parents' house. And so I have a signed autograph, SOD Money Gang, stacks on deck, bathing apes on my feet. Shout out Soldier Boy. Hey, crank that. Crank that. Crank that. Hey. So those are my stories for today. I hope you enjoyed watching. I didn't want to disrespect Soldier Boy by not saying I met him, because he's certainly famous, and bathing apes on my feet for show. So I hope everyone out there starts reading books, or at least starts thinking about the behavior, so maybe we can stop denying science and scaring people in the next 30 years. So that'll be sweet. If not, who gives a fuck? See you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something.